So one thing about this conference that you'll learn is you get a lot of information in a little bit of time. So trying to take all that back is really, really hard. So one of the things I'm going to try and teach you today is how to make it a little bit easier, especially with your overall work execution management. If you have good policies and procedures in place, 9 times out of 10, you can plan your work and work your plan and make it easy on yourselves to do the things that you need to do in maintenance and reliability. My name is Michael Guns. I'm from JFC & Associates. I'm a senior Maximo and EAM consultant. I started out in the trades. I came up as an electrician, moved my way through the maintenance world and the construction world, and I understand how a building is built from ground up, how it's made in the plans, how our poor engineers have to try and alleviate some pressures that we have on a day-to-day basis, and then how we as maintenance professionals actually maintain that equipment over its life cycle. So one of the things with this is in work execution management, 9 times out of 10, people don't know where to start. They don't understand what the journey is going to take or where they actually need to be effective in that work execution management role. So one of the things that I talk about most of the time with folks when we try to get them to understand this pathway is it needs to start with your executive leadership. They have to have buy-in on exactly what you're trying to do with your maintenance program, how your work gets done, and who's going to be involved. Because it's not only going to be you as the maintenance professional or you as the reliability engineer, your end users are involved in this as well. And I'll go over some tips and tricks on that in a little bit to show you how their buy-in is going to be very important on what you do. A mission and vision statement is the most critical part of what you do in your organization. I guarantee you on everybody's website right now, there's probably a mission statement on there. You know, without that, you don't know what you're going to grow up to be. You really don't know what your purpose is in your company or in the maintenance and reliability community. I used to work for the University of Delaware, and I put this up here because we spent a lot of time trying to figure it out and make it right. So the mission and vision of the Maintenance and Operations Department was to maintain safe, reliable, and efficient facilities to continuously improve asset reliability and service performance through applied innovation, technology, and process management. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? You're not going to come up with something like this in a 5-minute session with 4 people in a room, okay? This is important because you have to get everybody involved that's going to be involved in making that statement and providing that, that work against that statement. Does it make sense? All right, some key factors in this whole dichotomy. All right, and you're going to see some principles here that you probably have known since you were a little kid. Who are the stakeholders? Now, when I say stakeholders, I mean the end users, the people who are involved in what you provide a service for, and what your asset provides that service for. With those stakeholders, you have to understand how they are affected by what you do with maintenance and reliability. A great reliability engineer also needs to understand that they need to go out and talk to those folks. How is it affecting them, right? Will they provide, or will they be provided with notification that the work is progressing? Your CMMS system should have availability to do that automatically when a status changes or something like that happens. And then what are the resources that are needed to do it? You obviously need people to do the work, right? So it's important to know what that resource leveling is going to be. So some of the things that we're going to work on today will show you where that resource capability is going to come from, okay? It's very important and pivotal that this is a synergistic line of defense when you're trying to do reliability within your organization. Get the people involved, get your workers involved, and get your management involved. It's all about engagement. I take it upon myself when I go now to clients, but before I engage with everybody. I'll go out and I'll talk to the end users and say, what can I do better for you? How can my technicians or my executives work better for you? And how can I work better for you? If you give that face time out on the production floor or out in your plant somewhere, and those people see you, they'll know that you're in it with them. And that's one of the things that I like to say for myself and when I work with people is I'm in it to win it with you, no matter what. All right, let's get into nuts and bolts. How do we develop this work execution management? It's the 5WH principle. We've all taken an English class, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. All right, so who? Who is receiving the request and who is asking for the work? Okay, that's two critical components of work execution. You gotta know who, right? You gotta know who you're gonna contact. You gotta know what their phone number is. You gotta know what their email address is because you might be sending back and forth information, right? With that who's receiving the request? Okay? Who receives the request in your organizations? Anybody? Go ahead. What's that? Anybody else? Planner, scheduler? Dispatch? Okay? So let's do this. So this is going to be our intake list, okay? So planning and scheduling, dispatch. All right? What was the one you said? Okay, supervisors. All right, perfect. I knew somebody was going to say it. Pardon my handwriting, I got to go right fast. Go ahead. From the technicians, very good. How many people have been stopped in a hallway by your executive and going, stop what you're doing right now, and I need you to do this? Sucks, don't it? All right, so execs. All right? So there's a myriad of ways that your intake comes in, okay? It could be automatic with a service intake form. And that service intake form would email the right technician or the right shop for that to happen. Okay? This one right here, I have an affinity for. Okay? I'm a big proponent of planning and scheduling. I have another session that I do that like outlines all of that. And the first person I'm going to blame, that one. The only reason I say that is because they expect results, right? So that gets into the what. What work are they asking for? Is it really important? Okay? Sometimes, an executive might throw his weight around or hit her weight around and say, I need this right now. If they understand the process and what you're doing and what the impact is of that, I guarantee you their thought process will change. President of the university, I sat in a room with him and he said, no, you guys have to do this, 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 and this. And I looked at him straight in the face as a manager for electrical services and I said, no. And he looked at me kind of weird and my director's like, dude, shut up. I'm like, no. All right, there's a couple things that they have to understand is it impacts you doing the work. And it impacts them and their budget line. Okay, so they have to understand that. All right, when do they want the work done? Well, like I said, the executive, right now. Okay? As fast as possible. Well, I can do it tomorrow. Is that okay? That conversation right there, and as simple as that is, I can do it tomorrow. Is that okay? It goes a world of difference and makes a world of difference if you communicate. Where is the work taking place? You gotta know where you're going, right? There has to be a place in which this work is going to be done, where that asset resides, and what I have to do with that asset. Why is the work being done? It could be a condition-based thing, a frequency-based thing, regulatory. Okay? It's broken, obviously. We got to fix it. How do we need to complete the work? This gets into that resource loading, identifying the people, the places, the things. Okay, so these principles are very simple, right? Very easy to understand. All right, there's a couple of places that really kind of resonate in exactly why you do what you do and where you need to do it. Locations. So in your CMMS system, you have to identify your locations properly. Okay, there are some strategies out there where you might have a location to asset ratio being 1-to-1. I cringe every time I see that. Okay? But there is a necessity for it in certain situations. All right? But you got to know where you're going and how is that location identified? What's the criticality of that location? All right? Criticality, priority, kind of symbiotic, hand in hand, and there's a lot of speculation on if it's the same thing or not. It's actually different, okay? Criticality basically mandates how important it is to the overall mission and vision of what you do. The priority is when you need to do it quicker or slower. Does that make sense? It's probably the easiest way I can explain it. Then we get into the asset management portion of it, all right? Locations are assets, all right? They are things that operate. Your assets or equipment is also that. So there gets that thought process I was saying, the one-to-one relationship. I would rather see a location as the where and the asset as the what, okay? If you think about it that way, it makes it a little bit easier to understand. And your vocabulary is the same. Okay, that's important. Vocabulary is everything, especially in our industry. All right, the procedures that we're going to design around this work execution management, and I swear I'm getting to it, but these are important things to remember so that you understand why your work execution management and that process is important. All right, so the procedure that you're designing around this is accurately identified, verified, and the change information on that asset is noted. You're going to want to document this process, okay? So you not only have a work execution management process, you have an asset management process too that have to work together. Make sense? Maintaining this information for proper and efficient operations gives you some benefit to your budget. Now your executives are going to be happy because you're maintaining the equipment a little bit easier, better, more efficient. You're going to save time because everybody in this room is going to start planning and scheduling before they leave. All right? Most of the practices that you see or that you will be seeing with your asset management should be in the capital planning process of your organization. You have to know when that piece of equipment is going to expire and what the implications are of that piece of equipment having to be reinstalled. All right, that budgeting process should be a 5 to 10 year plan, or you should have a life cycle analysis on that asset when it's going to fail for your deferred component. Okay, does everybody know what an FCI is? The Facilities Condition Index. Okay, this is a specific number that's defined by the deferred component of your assets divided by the overall life cycle cost. If that number gets above 10%, you're in trouble. Okay, so the idea is to keep it below the 10%. In a university setting, they use this number to determine whether or not a building is renovated, raised, or just completely gone away with. Most of the buildings, and I guarantee you this is pretty synonymous with any organization, whether it be a plant, car manufacturer, university, anything. That number is a very good determining factor on how you budget for the life cycle. Okay? Within your records, you have so many fields that you can put in. That data is important, right? Your asset data is important. I highly suggest with your assets, very much so like with your locations, that you apply classification hierarchies. There's two things about that classification hierarchy that will support your work execution management as well, because now you will identify what that asset really is, okay? You'll have a roll-up to a specific function of that asset as well. And if you're doing your capital planning right and your construction right, that classification can apply to the uniformat or the universal format structure of those particular trades, okay? All right, so now that we understand locations, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, let's start developing that work execution management process. I highly suggest a whiteboarding session. Sit down with a group, get the stuff on a board so that they can see it visually, okay? Then once we do that, like we were talking about here, my intake comes from multiple sources, right? I have to disseminate this work somehow. Whether it be a call center or somebody saying, okay, it's this, this, and this, or my technician knowing what's going on. All right, we have an aging workforce. All that knowledge is going out the window, right? We have to get it in the system so that we know, right? So that gets me back to that classification, that role of that work. You can classify your work, all right? It's broken. I need to replace a belt. That can be all in a classification hierarchy and in a matrix by what type of work it is. If it's electrical, mechanical, furnishings, you can roll that down to what the device might be and then into what the work is. Now your call center, your call center or the people that don't understand the work very well, they have a way to choose and make it a little bit easier for the technician. And you'll be able to change that up individually. Once you do this whiteboarding session, you'll also identify roles and responsibilities. Who's impacted by that work? What's going to be done with that work? And then you'll be able to create service level agreements around what you're giving to your end user because you've basically written it down. You know how it's coming in, who's going to be impacted by it, and whose responsibility it is to fix it. All right, pretty simple, right? 5 steps, that's it. This could be your whole work execution management process, all right? Basically, how's the work coming in? The work is requested, it goes into a format where somebody can look at it, right? And then it's disseminated. Is it urgent or is it not? How many people in here think all their work is urgent? I need somebody to go look at it right now. All right, that's good. I guarantee you can plan 85 to 90% of your work. All right? At this stage in the process, now I can determine and I can have a group that does nothing but that urgent work. That's their whole job. We used to call them a speedy. So if it was life-limited property or it was going to damage something within an hour, we sent somebody out to go look at it and try to fix it within 45 minutes. If they couldn't fix it within 45 minutes, to the planning department it went, because obviously a job plan's needed now. Does that make sense? All right, that right there, that's gonna save you so much time because you have somebody dedicated to all the emergency work, all right? If it's not emergent, planning and scheduling. Let the planners go out and take a look at it, identify what that work is, put a job plan to it, identify if that job plan is something that's going to be recurring, okay? Maybe that repair that you do, like changing a ballast in a light or changing a pump motor, there's certain steps that you have to do to that, right? So you want that job plan to be in the system so that you can use it on other stuff later on. Maybe it's just the one-off and all you have to do is put tasks on your work order. Make sense? Once that planning and scheduling or that emergent work is identified, then we move to the work execution. All right, we've identified the work, now we got to do it, right? Who's going to do it? What's going to be done? How is it going to be done? Do you need a lockout tagout? Do you need a safety harness? Do you need a lift? All that's done within the planning stages so that when it gets to the work execution stage, I'm ready to go and do what I need to do. Okay? And then finally, your work completion stage. How many people in this room have a work completion process? Okay? About almost half, not too bad. All right? You should have a process in place for how your work orders are completed in the system, whether it be an automated process, by an escalation or something like that, or visibly looking at it to find out, okay, what happened? Were our estimates and our actuals pretty close together? Do we need to identify, a new job plan for that or revise the job plan because we didn't quite make it right? How was the turnover on the inventory? I guarantee everybody in this room is probably waiting for something right now, right? Okay, time frames for material are terrible. We had a transformer that we needed for our building, 57 weeks before we could get it. 57 weeks. We had shovels in the ground, okay? So that's hard. That's hard to get around and wrapped around. You have to understand that within your planning process, okay? Everybody get this so far? Pretty simple, right? All right, I'm gonna gum up the works a little bit. So now that you've created the simple way, and the simple way is probably the way that your executive wants to see it, the 5 steps, I don't want to get into the weeds, right? You have to understand where in the process that particular part has to happen. And if it needs to go in one place, direction or another, do I need that urgent work? Do I not? And what some of the steps are involved in that process for you to do. The reason that this is important and the reason that you need to break this down is because you might have some automated workflows within your CMMS that you want to apply. Okay? You have to know where the path's going to go in order for that to happen, or status changes and that kind of thing, right? This should be one of the things that you collaborate with your end user. This high level will give them a better understanding of how you actually perform your work. I showed this to an executive. They'll understand the plight that we have when we're trying to make things work and where the hiccups happen. Because I now apply roles and responsibilities to that work. In that process, I have to understand where the customer service representative comes in, your call center, your technician, your supervisor, how that work comes in. Then where it goes from there in planning and scheduling. When is my turn? What am I supposed to do when it is my turn? And how can I effectively do what I'm supposed to do to make it easier for everybody else in the process? This process development map is going to be very important across the life cycle of your CMMS because you're going to upgrade over time, right? So now you have a written diagram as to how you're going to do your work or how things go. So it's going to make your CMMS upgrade 10 times easier. I'm a big proponent of planning and scheduling. I will go tally on the mountain. And I will scream it till I'm blue in the face. If I plan what I'm going to do, I can save time. Okay? I can do more with less. Everybody in this room is probably thinking I'm nuts right now. I have a whole section on this. It's awesome. But if I take three technicians, okay, and I have a good work process and I understand how my work is being done, I can take those 3 people who are running around like chickens with their heads cut off and trying to do all of the work, going out and getting the work in and talking to the folks who need the work done and going over here and getting ladders and all that stuff. All that time wasted, right? If I had one planner instead of those 3 technicians and that one planner did all the planning for those 2 other technicians, I get a 35% increase in my productivity. All right? Just with taking one person away. And the other thing people look at me and say is, well, you're taking somebody away. They're not doing the work. Well, guess what? They'll be efficient in what they're doing because that planner is putting everything together. So this is how you mitigate your backlog. Your work execution process tells you how to do it. This will be how you mitigate the backlog to make it manageable. Okay? Important saying that I saw on Reliability Academy. Planning reduces the delays during the jobs. If I plan my work, I'll know exactly what I'm involved in. But scheduling reduces delays between the jobs. It means I'm not going errantly everywhere. Okay? I have a pattern in which I'm going through. Make sense? Your planning process should involve everything that's associated with the labor, the tasks that are involved in it, and everything comes back to how you document. All right? Your documentation is key. My dad used to tell me all the time, document, 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 and document again. Sometimes it's overkill, but I guarantee you this will save your butt in numerous occasions. This just happens to be a format for CMMS changes. So I know when changes were made in my CMMS. This is part of our work execution process. You have to have that feedback loop so that you know what you need to do with the CMMS to make it better for you, okay? The governance around this makes it so that if those changes are made, say like on a PM record, I might change the description, or I might change the frequency. I might need to change the job plan. How many times have you been involved in a change, okay, and somebody either didn't document it or somebody comes back to you and says, I know that was in 2007 when Wendy was here, and I think she put it in a file somewhere, right? Where are you going to find that? It should be in your CMMS, or it should be in a documentation repository that says, okay, this is what I did with this piece. Changes in your frequency and your meter-based condition monitoring should be documented as well. That's all got to be a work execution task that a person has a role for. All right? Who uses seasonal dates and job plan sequencing? Nobody? Ooh, okay. I see a lot of head shaking. Okay. So seasonal dates within your work, if you know that you can only take down an air handler or a boiler at certain times of the year, plan that out. Have it documented and identified in your asset record as part of your work process to say, I can only take this piece of equipment down at these times of the year. All right? Those who are working in a plant, your processes have a length of time in which they run, correct? Once that length of time is up, you can have a PM spit out to say, okay, I need to do the downtime PM at this time. All right? Once you do all of this stuff, we get data, right? And now we have to report on that data so that my executive feels better about what we're doing. All right? Within this, you can identify how you did with your planning process and how your work execution management is really done, and have some KPIs against that to make sure that your process is working to your advantage. It can be fed to the appropriate levels of management for that affirmation, all right? And now I can start seeing some real return on what I'm doing with that process. Is it effective? Am I living up to the service level agreements that I set up with my end user, and are they being communicated with so that I get that feedback to make sure that that is happening? Accurate appraisal of work performed, asset uptimes, cost, and productivity are critical to effectively maintain building equipment along with justifying the ROI. All of these key components will make it so that your work execution management gets a feedback loop. I need to understand if I'm doing the right things or the wrong things, and how effective I am at doing those things. With the roles and responsibilities and the people who are involved in that process and what they're doing, are they being effective in what they're doing? Maybe they need more training, right? This will tell you that. And then one of the things I also talk about a lot is the best test of measurements is performance over time. A lot of people think that just getting data in and, I can see some kind of anomaly there. How many times is that happening? What's the frequency in which you're doing that? We heard a great session in the wrap talk earlier about the over time and the frequency base in which that information comes in. Now you'll be able to see what's happening a little bit more cleanly. All right, some of the results that you'll see from a good development of work execution management is upgrading the efficiencies and the effectiveness of what you're doing, because you'll know who's responsible for what when. Some of the efficiency gains from that planning and scheduling, you will save time. I guarantee you, if you went back and just take 5 jobs, if you're not already doing planning and scheduling, take 5 jobs that you have to do right now, walk out with your supervisors and plan that work. It's probably only going to take maybe a half an hour to plan 5 jobs if you're doing it effectively, right? Enhanced training and communication between management and planners, your end users, bringing that all together so that they know where their role is and what they're doing as part of that. Now you're functionally making your service level agreements work for you. Once you do all this, you're basically working the system, okay? And you'll become a superstar in your organization. Identify those things that make your life easier. If you make your life easier, the work will just come and it'll be done quickly. Any questions? I know that's a lot of information. Wait for the mic.
When you're creating those work order flowcharts or workflows, should that be done as like a group bringing in those different people that would be affected by it to make it together? Or should, I guess, myself as the engineer, kind of make it and then have a group session afterwards and be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, how it should go, where should we make changes, or like explain those responsibilities? It should be more of a group effort from the beginning.
It should. So I would suggest creating a steering committee that's set around this process making, and it should include all parties that are involved and strong parties. So don't just go pick somebody out of your user community just because, okay? Find somebody who can be a champion for you and identifying those in all of those aspects and whoever's role and responsibility it is. Because they'll most likely make this process a lot easier and give you more feedback that'll help kind of improve it. Not only that, they'll be able to go out and disseminate that information to everybody else a little bit better, all right?
I guess in your experience, what are maybe the top 3, or if you just want to elaborate a little bit on where you see work execution managements fail, that aren't working? The backlog is getting way too big, you're not getting work done. I guess, it's a broad question, but a lot of us are in this field. What would your advice or top 2 or 3 things to, have it be more effective?
I see one of the failures is being not reviewing your work when it's complete. It's very important to take a sampling of the work that's being done and just check it out. As a manager, I would walk and do 5 or 6 reviews of work orders. And I expected my folks, when I was the associate director, to do the same thing. I'll even make my technicians do it. Did you complete this the way that it was on the job plan? That's probably the biggest one, the review after the fact. I need that process to come back to the planners so that they can understand if they missed something on the job plan. Maybe it's your supervisor or your lead that is the person that planned the job, okay? Maybe they missed something that the technician saw when they were out there, and you can make that process better. And then the second one that I think is the biggest failure is your executive leadership being behind you, all right? I strongly suggest managing up. You have to be the no person. You have to be the heavy, okay? If you can do that and you can bring them along, bring them into the process. Like, show them what you're doing. When they see that you have a plan, 9 times out of 10, they're going to buy in quick because you're putting it out there for them to see, okay? So the executive leadership has to be part of it, and they have to be supportive of it. If your tiers are a little weird and you have like a VP overall, everybody, like that person that is involved with you directly has to be that person to kind of bring that information back and support you. That answer the question?
I've just got a quick one. Great presentation, Michael. When it comes to planning and scheduling, should they always be distinct roles, have a planner and scheduler, or is there a basis when the planner can be the scheduler as well? What's your thoughts around that?
I love this question. Okay. It should be a separate role. You should have a separate planner and a separate scheduler. A planner can plan for about 26 or 25 people. I see the sweet spot around 25. And it's effective, okay? For a scheduler should be able to do somewhere around 60 people's worth of scheduling. The great thing about PMs, okay, that a lot of people don't understand is if they're frequency-based PMs, guess what? That's known work. I know that stuff's coming out. It's a monthly, it's a weekly, it's a yearly. I know that stuff's coming out. I can lay that crap out on a schedule in a minute because I know when it's coming. If I do a PM forecast, I lay it out there. Now I can take those corrective maintenance items that I have, prioritize them, and then plug them into polls. So that planner, that's a perfect example of when that person should be doing that. If they lay that plan out for that PM that's frequency-based, now we just have to worry about the little stuff. And the scheduler, a lot of what I see right now is that it's a planner-scheduler role. They're doing both. It sucks, but it happens. Can you be effective in doing that? If you use some of these techniques, yes. But it's going to be really hard for you to be effective and efficient in making sure everybody's schedule is done. You can plan up to the world, but you're going to have to get somebody to help you with it. Good?
Okay, kind of related in a different way. I'm responsible for multiple sites not co-located. And many of them are small, with a crew of maybe 9 or 12 people and only one mechanic. Mm-hmm. How can I arrange the work execution management system to handle a situation where I don't have a crew, where I don't have, where one person, the plant managers say, is probably usually responsible for the planning, the scheduling, you don't have the ability to say spread off and designate a planner scheduler. Mm-hmm. So what recommendations would you give me in that kind of a case? That one slide that I had for the roles and responsibilities, that would be where I would stick that. If you understand who's responsible at that point in time in the process, it's going to show that you need more people, number one. Number two, now what's your contractor ratio and what you're doing with them? Is there overtime involved? Those will be the kind of things that come up in that process. So hopefully when you're managing that person who's there as the guy or the lady, they know that. So that process, if you line item it out with the roles and responsibilities, I think it might take care of that. But it sounds like more people might be involved, right. So then, once you understand that portion, I do believe that the planning scheduling part would help as well, because then you can know when the people are going to be in. Did that answer the question, hopefully? Sort of? Okay. Martha? I think Martha had one too.
Michael, you mentioned data analytics there at the end of your presentation. Mm-hmm. I'm curious when reports and KPIs and metrics come up as part of your process and conversation. Do you do it as part of your business process mapping? For example, we're going to talk about work planning. Let's talk about what reports could be ran, what metrics could be measured to make sure that this process and the data is staying solid. Do you do that as part of the process, or do you wait afterwards?
No, as part of the process. As the process is being mapped out and as you identify those roles and responsibilities, it's going to come up what KPIs you really need for that piece.
as you go through and say that, inventory, for instance. At the planning and scheduling stage, once I know that it's going that way, are my parts inventories there? What KPIs do I need for that to support making sure that my safety stock's there? Making sure that my back orders are not overwhelming. And then two is, how's it affecting your budget? That'll come up like right at the beginning. How many people I need for a call center? Instead of it being emailed directly to me, I want a KPI to understand who the requester is. Is it coming into the managers? Versus, do I need a call center to support that so that I can free them up to do other things? Make sense? Yeah?
So actually, that's a good jump off point. So as you start talking about the data and the metrics in the process, accountability, right? You want the technicians involved. You want the folks on the shop floor involved and engaged in this process. Then you start talking about metrics, you talk about accountability, and all of a sudden in the room you have a bunch of people who say, wait a minute, now you're gonna hold me accountable for whether or not this gets done. And these are people who've not been able to be held accountable before. They've got metrics. Mm-hmm. They're gonna have data against them and data for them, and they see both sides. What have you done to get through that? I know some things I've done, but I'm curious what you've done.
So we've done a lot of things. That chart right there, the schedule achievement report, I have one that's like that, and then I have one for the planners also. When you start seeing that you're below somebody else, it starts becoming a competition. I'm not letting that happen, right? The failures too. If you do the failures by like regions or areas or age of equipment, then you kind of start noticing the things that you might need to either make more critical or identify as an important stage of the review. But that right there it becomes a competition. If you can make people compete for stuff, I guarantee you're gonna get change. Quick little story. When I was manager for electrical services, I put this up on the screen in front of the guys. And I said, all right, look, these zones have a particular work getting done. We followed the process. You guys are doing great, okay? But this one is lacking. And as soon as that guy saw it, he was like, oh no, I talked to that guy yesterday. He did this, this, and this, right? And I said, well, we're gonna change up the zone concept that we have. So we had the university broken out into like 5 different zones. And the same guy, who was the lead, by the way, he piped right back up. He said, no, I like my zone. I like what's going on in the zone. They hated it at the beginning, but I just started scheduling their work that way, right? Once they started doing that, they all thought I was sneaky because I just put their work in the right spots. But they loved it because they could contact the right people all the time and made their jobs efficient. All right, so hopefully that kind of brings it all together. If you make it a competition, and a good competition, not pointing the finger to say that this person is not doing the right thing, okay? It's competitive. If I'm competitive, I'll make changes.
Competitive out of desire, not fear.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Thank you guys very much.